All right, today's lesson is on standard form. We started the lesson on Friday. Today's a short day, so we will be finishing the lesson like the top of tomorrow. So that means that tomorrow it will be an exit ticket instead of an entrance ticket. And part of that, so if it says that you want the answer and 2x plus, sorry. If we want the answer in standard form, then it needs to look like standard form, which means it needs to look like ax plus by equals c. So that's part of it. If it wants it in that form, it better be written in that form. And with that, you need to be able to identify your x and y intercepts, convert to slope intercept form, and vice versa. And then model with standard form. So all of those things you are going to be tested on. I know there's a lot of stuff on this slide. I'd rather you have it and not need it than need it to not have it. So on here is videos from last year that are helpful. And then Friday's lesson, since that's like the part 1 of the standard form lesson, today's lesson will go in here too. So the recording that I'm making right now. And then you have your worksheet that you picked up Friday. Hopefully you have been working on that a little bit each day. On Friday, you probably weren't able to do the whole thing. After today, you should be able to. I mean, I know we'll be finishing the lesson tomorrow, but we'll at least get to the teacher example, which means that you can finish the entire worksheet tonight. And you should, all right, because tomorrow you have an exit ticket on. So here's the schedule for assessments this week, the ones that are highlighted. So we are pretty much finished with topic 2. We have like one more lesson, and then we're taking the topic 2 test on Friday. All right, and by that I mean form A, where you do get to use your notes, but you're just graded on if it's right or if it's wrong. So that'll be Friday. Next week you'll take form B, which is kind of like your retake, but you should still try your best on both, because on form B, you do not get to use notes. And you also are required to show work. So that way I can give you points back, like maybe if you got the correct slope, but the wrong y-intercept, I can at least give you half credit or something along those lines. And that is what I did on the last test, on your topic 1 test. And I did put in all those scores. So you should have seen that over the weekend. It kind of just depended on which one was higher. I picked the higher of the 2 and put it in there. So you should know what your grade is and if you want to retake it. The only thing that I still have to do is give you points back. Like if your topic test, you scored higher than your quizzes, if you score like a 70%, any quizzes below 70%, I'll bump up to 70%. So that I still have to do, but at least you all know what you scored on that test. Questions about that? All right, so if you want to come to tutoring and retake it or do corrections, I highly recommend it because that's like the quickest way to get your grade. Assuming that you're studying and putting in the work to actually learn the ones you got wrong, then that's the quickest way to get your grade up. Because even on a retake, I'll still bump up your quizzes to whatever score you get. Does that make sense? All right. So just because you have a bad grade now doesn't mean you need to keep that bad grade. Now for the U-try that you guys just did, what did you get for your x-intercept? Positive or negative?
Positive.
That sounds correct from when we did it earlier. What about the y?
Negative.
That sounds correct as well. If I want to find my x-intercept, what has to be 0? The x or the y? The y, right? And then you're basically solving for the x. What's 2x minus 0?
2x of 2.
2x. How do I get the x by itself?
5 by 2.
Good, and that's how you get that your x-intercept is 4. And then make sure you plot it on the correct axis. So which one is my x-axis, the horizontal or the vertical?
Horizontal.
Horizontal. Right here. All right, so good. Now if I want to find my y-intercept, what is 0?
X.
Good, so plugging in a 0 for the x now and solving for y. 2 times 0 is what?
0.
So I have 0 minus y equals 8. Can I just like circle that and say my y-intercept is 8?
No.
Because is the y completely by itself?
No.
What's next to it other than the 0?
Negative.
The negative. In order it to be 100% correct, we got to get rid of that negative. How do I do that?
Divide.
Divide by -1 on each side. And then your y-intercept, you guys were correct, is -8. So would that be above or below the 0? If it's a -8, below. Well, I can't count. All right, so right here would be the correct placement. And then to make your line, connect your dots, make your arrows. And then that is it. Sorry, it's really hard to make a straight line, but you get the point. Questions about that? All right, now with the paper that Ms. Turan passed out to you, we're gonna look at that page next. Oh, did you? Oh, sorry, I thought you were. Okay, well, we're passing it out right now.
I don't even know.
When you get the paper, I'll have you write these instructions. All right, so to graph things from standard form, what form do you need to convert it to?
0.
Y
equals
equals yeah.
Good. All right, we want it to be in this form. We did learn with x and y intercepts just now. Sometimes it's easier to do that. Sometimes it's easier to rearrange it. And for this one, we're going to practice rearranging it. So notice though what happens. We have 0 times x. What is 0 times x?
X.
0.
0.
0. So basically what happens?
X just disappears. Yes.
That part cancels out. Okay, listen to the question I'm asking. Stop answering weird questions. Okay, I'm only asking what happens to the 0 times x. All right, what happens to it?
Just 0.
It basically disappears. It cancels out. It becomes 0. So what remains? I have 2y equal to
6.
6. So don't worry about that. Just keep going like normal. In order to get into slope-intercept form, what variable am I isolating?
So the y.
The y. So how do I get rid of the 2?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2 on each side.
Y 3.
So y equals 3 is the equation that I am graphing. Now this is still an equation, and I still graph it. It's going to be a line. It's not just going to be a dot. All right, but look at like slope-intercept form. We don't have an x in this one, so that means there's no slope, right? Because it's 0. But it does have a y-intercept. All right, because remember the b is the single number, the y-intercept is a single number. So what is my y-intercept for this? 3. So we're going to put a dot on the 3 for the y-axis. Now, we already said it doesn't have a slope. So that's either going to be a vertical line or a horizontal line. So here's how you can go about this 2 ways. You can just memorize that whenever it's y equals just a number, that it's going to make a horizontal line. All right, if you like memorizing things like that, go ahead, maybe that's easier for you. Personally, I don't like memorizing random things like that. So here's what I do. I put my dot, at y equal to 3, because that's my y-intercept. And And then I just think about it. If I made a vertical line, are the y values all 3 on that line? Yes or no?
No.
No, right? Because here it's 3, it's at 0, 3, but then up here it's 0, 4, 0, 5, 0, 6. So it would not be the vertical line. If I made the horizontal line, are all the y values equal to 3 on this line?
Yes.
Yes, and you can test it out with a few points. Sorry, imagine if that's a straight line. Because look, it's 0, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, and it keeps going. All those y values will be equal to 3. That's what that line means. Does that make sense? So I just memorize stuff like that. I don't memorize that y equals make a horizontal line, but if you want to, go ahead. Questions about this one? All right, everyone have it written down? Okay, great. Now here's the class example. So put this in your class example box. All right, we want to graph this one, but this time what term cancels out? The y term cancels out, right? Because 0 times y is
0.
0. So I have 3x plus 0, which is
3x.
3x equal to -6. So when that happens, obviously there's no y to isolate. So let's just isolate the only other variable that remains. So how do I get the x by itself?
Divide by 3.
So do that on each side, and x is equal to
-2.
-2. So now we have to graph an equation that looks like this. So we are going to put a dot where x is -2. Where would that be?
On the -2 line on the left.
So on the horizontal line,
Horizontal line.
find -2 would be right there. And you could memorize that when it's x equals a number, that it'll make a vertical line. If you want to memorize that, go ahead. Or you can, again, just like think about it. If I make a horizontal line, will all those x values be equal to -2? All right, not if I make a horizontal line. And if I make a vertical line through that circle, all right, if I make a vertical line, are all these x values equal to -2?
Yes.
Yes, and you can try it out. This is -2, 0, -2, 1, -2, 2, -2, 3, and it keeps going. So I know I made the correct line. Questions about that? Are we ready for the student example? Anyone still writing? Still writing, you know. Okay. I'm gonna put the student example up here. In 3, 2, 1. All right, so here's a student example. Don't just tell me the equation, graph it also. I need to make sure you guys can graph it on a test. All right, so try this one out. All right, y should be equal to -6. That's your equation that you're graphing. So your y-intercept is,
-6.
and that horizontal line is where all the y values equal -6. All right, and there's no slope, right? That's why there's no rise. All right, make sense? Any questions?
No.
All right, so then let's squeeze in one more example. So flip to the back side. And write down these instructions at the top. So here, I'll point an arrow to it. This, write down at the top, because that's gonna be the instructions for all three examples. Over here is just the teacher example. All right, so the instructions are that you'll be changing equations from slope-intercept form into standard form. And then we have the teacher example, which is y equals -2/3 x plus 4. What is slope-intercept form? Good. And then what is standard form? No.
Ax plus b is y equals c.
Good. So write that part down too. And then before we get into it more, just like stop there. So to have everything written down, that way tomorrow we can just go over it. Question?